find out what clubs and personal trainers are looking for in technology. That's the first half of this session. The second half of the session is a follow-up panel, also led by Ted, where we're introducing new technology and ideas that are available to help with the revolution. So, enjoy.
Getting to a healthier place is about more than just going to the gym. It's about bravely taking that first step. A step made easier with the right plan, the right coaching, and the support of those around you. It's about realizing a better life isn't measured in gym minutes. That every step, every choice matters. It's about being helped back up when you fall down and doing things you never imagined possible. The journey to a healthier place starts with a single step and a little help from someone who cares.
Good afternoon, my name is Ted Vickey. I'm a professor of kinesiology at Point Loma University in San Diego. And I'm also the Senior Advisor for Disruptive Health Technologies for the American Council on Exercise. ACE is the largest certification organization in the world with over 70,000 personal trainers and health coaches. So when Julie asked me to think about what we wanted to talk about here, this is my 5th CES, and one thing that always surprises me is that the traditional fitness and health is often not represented here. So show of hands, how many come from a traditional health and fitness?
Just a couple.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
So my thought is to be able to bring people from the traditional side to talk with you and give you the opportunity to ask them questions about what it is that they need. So I have with me 2 panelists. First is Lea Jordan and Ryan Masanz. So Lea, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Lea Jordan, and I'm a health coach and a personal trainer. I'm certified through the American Council on Exercise. And I came to this profession quite by accident. I was in the technology world working for a managed service provider in Washington, D.C., and I discovered over time that I had multiple chronic diseases, diabetes, COPD, hypertension. I gained tremendous amounts of weight, was connected to oxygen, and could barely move at over 450 pounds. And so long story short, hope arrived in the form of a personal trainer from American Council on Exercise. And to use her words, she saw me from the inside out. She accepted me where I was, and so that combined with hope transformed my world. And my new purpose became to help people like myself that were trapped in their bodies. So that's how I became this.
So health coach, personal trainer. Let's talk a little bit about from a corporate fitness side. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Masanz. I'm actually CTO of Anytime Fitness, not CEO. I just want to make sure that's clear. The slide is a little off.
I'm going to take a picture of that and send it.
I'm sure Chuck will get a laugh.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Promotion right here. So I've worked with Anytime Fitness for about 10 years. A little over 10 years before that, I had a consultancy in the data center space, software development space, and Anytime became my biggest client. And in fact, I was visiting Anytime almost every single day, and eventually it just became, hey, why don't we just join up and work on something great together? And through that course, I think we went from having about 80 clubs open to now over 3,000 in almost 30 countries. And much like Lea, when I started at Anytime, I was very out of shape. And through the course of just kind of immersion in the industry, I lost about 140 pounds myself.
Wow.
So, and it was with people who cared.
So Lea, I know a little bit about you, and one of the things that you do is you work with people from around the country. You're in Florida, and I know you said you have some clients in Alaska, and you kind of focus on people that are obese. So how do you do that from Florida to Alaska? What technologies do you use?
When the clients that I work with primarily are 100 pounds overweight or more, sometimes trapped in their houses. So if you're a personal trainer, if anybody in the room is, or I can't really get in my car and go to a circle of clients. So that's why tech became so important. And so I used technology, this is 4, 5, 6 years ago when I started it, to sort of overcome geographic barriers and time barriers. And in this unique sort of combination of ways in which we leverage the ability to track food, but in a unique way, and exercise, and people have been talking about heart rate, and we do that as well, and other forms, as well as providing instant communication on the spot. This allows me to work with literally anybody in the United States, and I have clients throughout that.
One time we were talking, and I remember you said something quite interesting, is some of your clients don't even like to go outside of the house. They're embarrassed, and that's why technology is such an important thing for them and for you to be able to meet them where they are.
Yeah, and the clients that I'm dealing with really are not what you would typically find in a gym. Some have the courage to do that, and a lot of them ultimately get there.
Yeah.
I have a client that I started working with a little over a year ago who wasn't as bad in my world, 150 pounds, and I was working with her through technology, and she just finished the Ragnar. Right. So, I mean, that's quite a progression.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about Anytime Fitness from a corporate view. Ryan, what are some of the technologies that you are using within your clubs from around the world?
It's interesting. I think Anytime Fitness was sparked by a little bit of technology, actually the digital key that opens the door. Our problems back in the day were rather quaint. We just removed a barrier. It's like, hey, you can use the gym anytime, anywhere, and now around the globe. But more recently, we started getting into the quantified self, maybe about 7-ish years ago, and this kind of leads up to where I'm going. And we got into tracking, and we found that tracking diet, tracking exercise, tracking workouts, it worked for some people, maybe 10, 15% of our members, but it didn't work for most. It didn't create long-term habit change. So we started looking into, well, what would, and we looked at it first from a retention play. So we started capturing all the data we could. So gym visits we would log, when you went to group training, did a personal training session, what have you. But that at best accounts for maybe 3 hours of someone's life during the week. So then of course we went with Wearables, looking at what's going on outside the gym, getting a glimpse into their life, and we'd see what they were or were not doing. And we actually got pretty good at predicting when people would fall off the wagon. It was how to fix it that was the real problem. And the answer tended to be a real person. It tended to be someone personally reaching out. And I'll give you a real world example. It's very common today. I have a watch, fitness watch, and it will let me know if I'm behind my activity, right? So 9:30 at night, it tells me, hey, you need to do a 30-minute walk to reach your activity goal for the day. But I'm like right now in the middle of watching a great episode of Black Mirror. I don't want to do that. So I just dismiss it, go away. And what's the consequence? There really isn't much. But if you inject a trainer into that, where this is a person I see 3, 4, 5 times a month in the gym, they probably brought me into the gym, helped me get me up and running in my program. If they send me the almost exact same personal message, and I know I have to see them the next day, I'm far more likely to get up and do that workout. And so what started out as a retention play soon became a coaching platform. And the idea was simple. It was amplify the reach of a trainer, right? With the goals of motivation and accountability. And I think it worked. I mean, we're seeing it work in our gyms today. They can actually do this. And by the way, it lets the trainer be more efficient. So instead of having maybe 20 active clients, they can have 40, 50, or 60. So they make more money. It's better income for them. They stay longer. And also, that personal attention that a member has is now affordable. So that's very cool. And it took a lot to get there, with technology-wise, to make it all work.
Now, was that technology built in-house?
It was, I would say, largely built in-house. Right now, we have a team of about 60 people, kind of covering all forms of development, from user experience, data, what have you. Largely in-house, especially around user experience. But if we find something great on the market, we will buy it. It's like, hey, I don't need to rebuild the wheel here. We'll take it and integrate it as best we can.
Lea, I know you're also an academic. And if you read some of the journals that are out there, one of the things that you often see is that they say that these apps and these wearables don't follow the exercise science that you and I grew up with. And I also know that you kick the tires before you have any of your clients try anything. So what do you think?
Well, like anything, it's a mix. I mean, there are there's some stuff out there that doesn't match up, it doesn't have the evidence, but I think in general, the nature of academic journals is rigorous, right? Is to be reliable, valid, to be able to prove over and over again the same outcome. And while being exact is really important for some things. I mean, if you want to call me and you miss it by just one digit, the 7 instead of the 6 even, you're that close, you won't get me. It's a complete fail. But again, with the clients that I work with primarily, and what I would argue is super important, which is the chronic disease, 70% of preventable deaths over 3 activities, is really not about exact. Wellness is a journey. So really, it's with a lot of steps. So if the app, without the outliers, on both ends, if the app or the fitness tracker or the technology play gets action in the right direction generally, that's a win.
So it's really more of like a relative versus an absolute. I've often heard you have a scale at home, you have a scale at the doctor's office, you have a scale at the gym. Which one's right?
The one with the lowest number.
The lowest number, right. But as long as you're continuing to go down that, use the same one, it's always off 10%, you know that you're following the right trend. Ryan, big operation with Anytime, lots of different countries, lots of different languages. What are some of the apps and the wearables that you're using?
Sure. We have 2 main ones, one of which we built, one of which we acquired, and they focus on 2 different groups of people. The first one is for people that are a little bit more self-starting, motivated themselves, they just need guidance. And this is an app called Workouts, and what it has inside of it is a bunch of workouts. But it goes way beyond that. It has very detailed plans that can last 6 to 8 weeks, full of very well done video exercise, instructional video. And for those people, it works really, really well. You can have a really great out-of-pocket, hey, this is what I need to do here. But the other group of people, which probably also need that plan, they also need motivation, they also need accountability. So our primary app, we call it the Anytime app, that's what it's focused on, and it's connected to that coaching platform, and most directly your coach. So if you opt for this service, you have a direct sort of augmented text chat with that trainer where they're seeing a lot of data about you, you're seeing the data that's relevant about you, and they can prescribe programming and all that sort of jazz through it. And also that app is where all the wearables connect in. So if we connect with Fitbit, we connect with Under Armour's platform, so pretty much any major device we can pull data in. But this space is incredibly challenging right now because a lot of the technology has been made from the mindset of direct to consumer, which makes sense. But when we're trying to sit there and connect it together, if someone signs up for coaching, it is literally a 30 to 40 minute session where we get them connected. Just let me walk through this to explain the pain. Well, let's say we give the member a wearable, right? We need to get the app for that wearable. We need to set an account up, usually an email verification step. Then we get to pair the device. Then, if it supports something like Home Health Kit, then you got a screen of switches of what I want to share, what I don't want to share. And then finally, happy path, it works. But now it's trapped in that thing. Maybe it's in Health Kit too. But then our app has to then be installed and connect to it. And if it doesn't play ball with some of the ecosystems out there, there's just another layer of I have to log in again, do this again, do this again. And it's complex. And people get frustrated. I can see that from the tickets we get of when things don't work. But interestingly, I think members would do that for a device they wear all the time. But what we're seeing is a lot of cool tech around body scanning, smart scales, heart rate monitors used for an hour. There's no patience whatsoever to go through some really arduous process to connect them. And look, I know health kits out there, there's a lot of aggregators out there, but they still have this fundamental issue of friction that we can't seem to get around in any real way, which I wish we could. So, idea.
You have some interesting insights because you're across the board and you're seeing how the general public is using a number of different apps and wearables.
Yes.
Where is the general public when it comes to the adoption of these things and the use of them?
Boy, it's kind of, so we also have like a come as you are approach. So people will come in, largely we see the big 4 or 5 wearables out there. But they don't really know how to use them. And what's really interesting too is when you go to help them through this process, half of them, you look at their phones to help them and they can't even see the screens. The text is already blown up into blind mode. I mean, it's so hard to get any sort of traction with it that they may have a device and it may play an ecosystem, but it's still so complex for them that I've actually saw people that were wearing a device religiously and it wasn't even syncing for the last month. And they just assumed it was happening, right?
One more on that. Do you find that the Anytime member is bringing their own device, or are you selling devices to them?
We could easily sell many devices. We did this. Some clubs do it. We're working through what this means for us. We could sell millions of them. I say right now, most people, if they want one, they tend to have them. But yeah, it's a mix.
Lee, you're a numbers guy and data. So what are the type of data points that you're looking for when you're working with these clients from around the country? And what do you do with the data?
Well, data is critical for what I do. But I will say that, to take a step back, because the data doesn't really come first. It's for sustainable change, which is what we're all here probably trying to accomplish, but certainly with the clients that I'm dealing with, the chronic disease. Sustainable change, we know a couple things. We can go back again to the peer-reviewed journals and to the real science. And you must have self-awareness, and if there's no self-monitoring, which is kind of a piece of that, there's never sustainable change. It's like you take that out, it's done. The bread won't rise with no yeast. So that's why the data is so important, is because it really provides them on their own and as they work with me, the ability to see. It also is a conversation starter. Now's not the forum to go into necessarily how to coach with data, but I can tell you that the thing that is still missing a little bit from my perspective, and you kind of already alluded to it in the bigger area, is that there's not really and there's a couple that are out there, but there's not really the platform where I can, on my phone, because it doesn't, if I have to go to a computer, no. It has to be on my phone, or maybe an iPad, something like that, to see all the clients all at once.
Yep.
So I'm having to silo them off, and so I can only scale but so far, especially with the client base that I have because of that.
I know one of the technologies that you use is real simple. It's text messaging.
Yes.
Tell us about how that works.
It's, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, and text is super important. Phone, as everybody's already said, that's, it's a supercomputer in your pocket. It's ubiquitous. It's always with you. And for my client base, as I would argue for any client base, you had alluded, like your watch can tell you something, but if the person who you have a relationship with.
So I'd add to that when we look at a lot of people doing the direct-to-consumer play for telling them what to do, all of what we're doing is not coaching the member. We're coaching the coach to coach the member. And it plays so much nicer because you have that personal layer onto it.
Yes. So it's the having the phone and having text, so barriers to entry, especially difficult with all clients, especially difficult with mine, as you already alluded to. So having a coach in your pocket, right there, it's a text. You don't even have to open another app that's HIPAA compliant or anything like that, and just go, boom. Makes all the difference. I mean, if you're out in the middle of the forest and you need fire to keep from freezing to death, you don't really care if it's a really cool lighter or not. A match is great.
Yep.
It just has to be at the time you need it, when you need it.
What's missing from a personal trainer or health coach to help you impact the lives that you get to serve?
And I would sort of circle back to where we had talked a little bit already, which is that magic platform, given where technology is now at least. To speak to one of the biggest chronic diseases, diabetes, when it's talked about, but I haven't really seen it work, when we get to sort of that holy grail of being able to see blood sugar without accurately, without having to prick, that is going to be a pretty nice game changer. But really, it's that dashboard.
Ryan, in the fitness industry, the statistics say that 20% of Americans don't belong to a gym. So at any time, do you see the integration of technologies giving the ability to change that number?
It's a tough question. So there's more opportunities today to join a gym, join a studio, join anything. The number of locations out there grows every day, yet you're still at 17, 18% participation. I think that, maybe you have 18% to 20% that are motivated enough continually to participate. I think 100% at some point in their life raised their hand to do so and tried it. Maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. So what we hope to do is capitalize on those moments where maybe, like for me, it took probably 10 times of imagine an old rusty lawnmower and pulling the cord of did it kick over, and then finally it did, and I was able to maintain it for a very, very long time. But we really have to make the most of those opportunities we have when they raise their hand, because you might not get another chance to do so.
You said a stat that's very interesting. I said it was 20% of the American population joining a gym. You added that only 18% then remain active. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple of minutes left. Lea, in a perfect world, you're in front of all these experts and they say, Lea, what do you need for the best app wearable out there to help with the obesity epidemic? What do you say?
I can list some characteristics. It needs to be personalized, which is, I'm so encouraged to hear that word has been thrown out 100 times already on this stage. So it needs to be personalized, and it needs to be open, not siloed off. And I would imagine, if it's possible, because data is just data, but if there's a way for it to make that data important to that person, helping them see what's possible, being a sort of what-if scenarios to motivate them in some way, that would be important. I would imagine that AI, natural language, machine learning, all those little pieces, but ultimately it comes back to a person. So having it be able to connect to a coach, a trainer, that kind of thing.
Ryan, same question to you.
Look, I largely agree. I think combining the great technology and data we have with a true living, breathing person that can make it work, it's always kind of been the secret sauce of great technology. It's both. It's not just one or the other.
I think we have time for one question. Anyone with a question? If not,
all right.
I'd like to thank both Lea, Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.